In this video, I am going to do a walkthrough for Lab 20, looking at the different types of vectors that are possible. This is just a sample of different vectors. We'll get to some specific ones later on in the labs. So we'll start with the mosquito mouth parts. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll look at these mouth parts of the mosquito. So what we're looking at here is just the head of the mosquito. And what you can see here are its antennae on either side. So they're very wispy. And then you see the mouth parts. So this long center portion here, this is called the proboscis. This is what's actually going to do the biting. So they would inject, there's like almost like a little hypodermic needle that comes out of the proboscis. And they would inject that into the skin to be able to take a blood needle. Now, the important thing to remember about mosquitoes and biting is that only the females are going to bite humans because females need the protein found in blood in order to be able to produce and lay eggs. So if we take a look at the next part here, we see the mosquito life cycle. So we have eggs, larvae, pupa, and then adults. And we've got some images down here. So mosquitoes, so here is actually a mosquito laying eggs, and we call these an egg raft. They're going to float on the top of the water. They look like little grains of rice, almost, kind of all stacked together. They're different colors depending on species. So this particular species, this looks like Helix. They're laying white eggs here. Here you see some black eggs. And here, the egg raft, you see some brown eggs. So the eggs can be different colors, but they're always going to float on top of the water. That's what this little blue line is showing you here. Then we get to the larval stage. So this is a mosquito in the larval stage. Sometimes these are called wrigglers. They're still going to be attached kind of under the water, as you can see in this picture here. And they just move constantly. And so sometimes they're referred to as the wrigglers. And then here we have the pupa stage, okay, kind of this giant head here. A lot of times they'll be curled up, like you see in this picture up here, still under the water. And then, of course, we get to the adult mosquito. So eggs, larva, pupa, and adult. That would be the life cycle of the mosquito. Our next image that we have here is of a flea, and we'll look at several different fleas. This one here happens to be Pulex irritans. This is the human flea. Not to say that it only feeds on humans, but this is the flea that we most commonly see with humans. When you look at the flea, something that's going to help you distinguish among the different fleas is the head. Notice that on the head here, there really aren't any hairs. We don't really start seeing hairs until we get kind of in the thorax and then the abdomen region here. So there are no hairs here on the head. You will notice at the ends of their legs, they have kind of these hooks or these little claws here that allow them to kind of latch on to their prey. So this is an example of a flea. Notice the back legs are a lot longer than the front two sets of legs. So moving on now, we're going to look at several different types of lice. So the singular form of the word lice is louse. So this right here is Bovicola bovis. This is the cattle louse. Anytime you see bovis, that's going to refer to cows or cattle of some type. So this is the cattle louse. And you'll notice that it has a very long abdomen, okay, very long abdomen. Kind of comes to a point at the end. and you can't really see them very well. Their legs are fairly short, but they do have little hooks, little claws on the ends of their legs as well. Um, their head region here almost looks like little horns coming off there. So that's something that can help you recognize this one is the cattle louse, and it looks like it has these horns on its head there. So that's Bovicola bovis. Our next one we're going to look at here is Trichodectus canis. This is the biting louse that we commonly see in dogs. So you'll see this one looks a little bit different. Still kind of has these little horns here, but they're not as long. And then notice the shape of the abdomen, very round. If we go back here, look, compare this, okay, compare the length of these little parts here, and then the length of the abdomen. And then when we look at the dog louse here, we don't see that. We can really see those hooks, those claws there. And then we have long hairs that extend off of the body. Okay, so this would be the dog louse. And then the next one we're going to look at here is the hog louse, Hematopinus suis. And anytime you see suis, that is going to be relating to hogs or pigs. Now in this image here, again, we can see the little horns here, but notice the striations or the ribbing in the horns here. They look completely different than the horns that are kind of going downward associated with the cattle louse. Also notice the shape of the abdomen. We kind of get these little scallops in here. And then all three sets of legs are really extended here. We can again see the claws here. Notice the hairs associated with the face here. So again, Bovicola bovis, the cattle louse, Trichodectus canis, the dog louse, and then Hematopinus suis, the hog louse. So next up we have a couple of ticks. This first one here that you're looking at is a type of hard tick. This is called Amblyomma americanum, or the Lone Star tick. It's named the Lone Star tick because it has this single little white spot on its back. Now, sometimes, especially if we look at this microscopically, we won't be able to see the color and the detail of this white spot. You'll be able to see the outline of it, but you may not see that it's this bright white structure. But just look for the outline of this on the back of the tick. So this is a hard tick. They have this little shield-like structure here that you can kind of see the outline of, and this is called a carapace. And this part kind of remains solid, even though their abdomen is going to swell with blood. Now we contrast that with a soft tick, which is next. Here we have Argas persicus. I'm going to kind of go down a little bit in magnification. So this is a soft tick. Notice that there is no carapace. They don't have that little shield-like structure on their thorax. Also, the legs are a lot shorter, and they're pretty much an oval. Their entire abdomen can swell with blood. Again, going back to the Lone Star tick, much smaller. So hard ticks are going to be smaller. They have longer legs, and they're going to have this carapace here that we do not see on this soft tick. Okay, so they're both ticks. And of note, ticks do have 8 legs. They are not insects. They are arachnids. They are more closely related to spiders than they are insects. Now the next one that we're going to look at here, let me make this a little bit larger. This is in the middle here. This is Demodex, follicularum. This is the human mite. We have these living all over the surface of our skin, particularly in hair follicles. That's where they get their name, follicularum. What you're seeing here is a slide of the skin. So this would be a microscopic view of the skin. And living within that hair follicle is Demodex. Okay. Mites also have 8 legs. You can kind of see them here. 1, 2, 3, 4 on this side. Can't see the ones on this side as well, but there would be 4 legs over on this side. So they are closely related to ticks and spiders. They have a very long body, and their abdomen kind of comes to a point here. So this would be the human mite, Demodex follicularum. Next, we're going to come to a different type of flea. This is Tinocephalides felis, which is the cat flea. And the biggest thing that I want you to notice between this flea and the one that you previously looked at is if you look right here by its mouth and then right here at the base of its neck, you've got kind of this row of thick hairs. And in fact, this is where the name comes from. Tinocephalides means comb head. So it kind of looks like they've got this comb attached to their head and kind of at the base of their neck here, and then also on their mouth. So that's the way that you can tell these apart. Just look for those particular hairs. And if you see those on the head, that's going to be Tinocephalides, not Pulecteres. The next one that we have here is going to be Cynex, or the bed bug. Let me make that a little bit smaller here. So this is, click one too many times, I guess. So this is Cynex. This is a bed bug. Notice it does have 6 legs, so we're back to insects. Here its antenna kind of coming off here, and then here would be its mouth part here. Okay. Notice it kind of has this kind of pointed oval shaped body here, hairs on its thorax and its head, but not really seeing as many of those sticking out from its abdomen. Okay. Just notice this pointed mouth part here. You'll also notice the hooks on its legs, like we saw with the lice, that kind of helps it hang on and move along the surface of the skin as it's biting. And then the last thing we have here is Helicoides. And I'm going to come back to the Helicoides, but the one thing I want you to notice here are the sizes. So here's a fly. So this would be something like a house fly. Here's a mosquito. Here's a midge. Okay. So the Helicoides, the midges, are very, very tiny insects. They look a lot like mosquitoes, but they're a lot smaller. Okay. So their legs are a lot tinier. Notice, the length of the mosquito legs versus the length of the midge legs. They're so tiny. So here would be an example of a midge. Tab all by itself. So you notice the overall body shape really resembles a mosquito. They still have, a little bit longer legs, but not as long as a mosquito. Okay. And their wings, if you notice their wings, a lot of times you're going to see little spots on their wings, not always, but this is how we tell the different species. You'll also notice that its proboscis is not as long. Here's one of its antennas. And its proboscis is not going to be as long. If you remember when we looked at the mosquito mouth parts, its proboscis was pretty much as long as its antenna. And we don't see that with the midge. Okay. So hopefully this has helped you as you are working on Lab 20, and we'll continue to look at some of our pathogens and vectors as we move through the remainder of the lab.